What's cracking, y'all? You are now watching Boo TV. Appreciate you for stopping in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and let's get into the topic for today. What's cracking, y'all? Welcome back to some more Larry Bird content from the Larry Bird universe right here on Boo TV. Again, another big shout out to Dutch T for this recommendation. Found a short Larry Bird video for us. She said there's some repeats, but there's an interesting and funny story involving, I believe, Larry Bird's agent, Bob Wolf. So, let's get into it. The video is called Larry Bird, Phenomenal Teammate. And yes, Larry Bird was a phenomenal teammate. By the YouTube channel, All Basketball TV. Go check it out and subscribe. Again, salute to you, Dutch T. Y'all go check out our Larry Bird playlist after this for more Larry Legend content. And let's get into this video.
Sycamore and Bird over the shoulder. He's for two and a foul. Oh, boy.
Again and again throughout his career, Bird had managed to do the impossible.
Over the backboard.
Creating an aura of invincibility.
After Bird.
Drop one here quickly, 14. This is a tie for the money.
But perhaps it is the twilight of his career that provides the keenest insight into the essence of his greatness. As the 80s gave way to the 90s, age and injury would take their toll. But though his physical skills had begun to diminish, Bird showed he was still capable of carrying his team, sometimes by force of will alone. Not even the relentless assault of time could dim Bird's spirit.
I can remember when I first came in the league, Artis Gilmore told me one time, he played for Chicago, he said, if you expect to play a long time in this league, you better quit mopping up the floor. And I thought, well, he's crazy because that's what basketball is all about. We're getting a little bit older now and feeling the bangs and the bumps and bruises and all that. I can see where he's coming from, but I can't change my style of play. I got to play like that every night.
The challenges he faced had changed, but Bird had remained steadfastly the same.
And Larry still kind of comes in with that 22-year-old attitude about basketball.
Bird again on the other end. Short with the hook. Catlidge, a traffic rebound. Bird strips it, tips it. Yeah!
He was just a phenomenal teammate who could do anything and everything by himself, but always in the framework of the team.
I care about my teammates. I want to see my teammates do well. He personified that.
He's brought his values that he had in the 7th grade in French Lick, Indiana, and he stayed with them. I remember distinctly one summer calling him in. He was working out in Terre Haute, and I caught him in the boys' club there. And he called me back, and I said, Larry, I said, the president of Harvard called, and he wanted to know, would you be kind enough to address the freshman class on the values of having a college education? It'll only take you 10 or 15 minutes, to do so. He said, no. I said, well, also, Sports Illustrated wanted to put you on the cover, and they wanted you to take some pictures, and they said it wouldn't, take that much time. He said, no. I said, Life magazine also called. They want to just take pictures. They didn't even want to do an interview. They'll run a 10-page spread on you, and they just want to follow you around and have your permission to take pictures. He said, no. He said, Mr. Wolf, he says, I thought you said this call was important.
Larry Bird grew up in French Lick, Indiana, with a ball, a basket, and a dream.
Around here, you learn to play by yourself or with a friend. And if you're going to make anything of yourself, you got to do it on your own.
Practicing long after his friends had gone home, he would find the essence of the game, and in many ways, of himself.
I think Larry always looked at himself as a poor person. And this was his claim to fame. This was his opportunity to really show people, that he's as good as anyone else.
He has played with the passion of the underdog, the purity of tradition, and a vision that is his alone.
You look at people like MacArthur, where the war happens, and General Patton. There's a war for them to shine in. Larry was born to play basketball.
Touching the hearts of all those who have watched him play, he has left behind a sense of wonder and a legend.
The narrator of this video was absolutely right with everything he said. Bird had unwavering belief in himself, confidence, and was able to instill that and provide that kind of assurance for the people that played with him. And that does a lot for cultivating the environment, or a team environment. Now, I'm not a big stats guy, statistician. I'm not part of this big analytics brigade that's going around now, where people think analytics and numbers are the end-all, be-all for coming to conclusions. That's not me. I put the numbers and the stats in the context. Why are these numbers telling me what they are? What's the story behind them? Let me gather information from all these different areas. I test stats, sort resources, and put it all together for me to come to my conclusion. But when Larry Bird arrived to the Celtics, he fostered the biggest turnaround for an NBA franchise from one year to another that we've ever seen for an NBA ball club. The Boston Celtics, who had many of the same players before Larry Bird arrived, were 29-53. When Bird showed up as a rookie, 61-21. Off the strength of Bird and his ability to lead and be a dynamic teammate. People don't forget, the year prior to Larry Bird arriving, the Boston Celtics had Bob McAdoo, albeit he was only there for 20 games with Boston after arriving from New York, where he played 60 games. But during that entire year, Bob McAdoo was still an elite player. Bob McAdoo was averaging like 24, 25 points per game and damn near 9 rebounds between both teams that season. Bob McAdoo was a beast. Now, he wasn't still with the team when Larry Bird arrived, but they did have an all-star caliber player. 20 games, but they had him. And they could still only muster a record of 29-53. The players on that team, when Larry Bird arrived, that he led through the trenches, Tiny Archibald, M.L. Carr, Don Chaney, Dave Cowens, Eric Fernston, Chris Ford, Gerald Henderson, Cedric Maxwell, fantastic player, Pistol Pete Maravich on his way out the door, Rick Roby. That wasn't the Lakers team that Magic Johnson found himself being drafted onto. Not even close. That turnaround speaks volumes about Larry Bird's impact. His ability to lead. His value as a teammate on that Boston Celtics ball club. And you can go all the way back to college, to his college days, to understand who the hell he was as a teammate. Bird was a basketball head. He loved to be in the gym and getting up shots as long as he possibly could, honing his game and skills. And it kept him at the top for the most of his career. And people don't understand. Leaders must also practice. Yes, Allen Iverson, we're talking about practice. And just master and be as skillful as they possibly can be in all facets of their game, to include communication, which a lot of people tend to forget that that's a big point and a major point in being a teammate and being a leader, is understanding how to communicate. Bird was out there to work hard and win by any means necessary. And he expected a lot from himself, just like he would from others. He wouldn't ask somebody to do something that he wouldn't do. Bird was one of those guys where no matter who you put around him, he was going to tap into them, tap tap into their potential, and make them better. Robert Parrish didn't always have a good rap before he came over to the Boston Celtics. I got a quote from Robert Parrish when he was playing on Golden State. Robert said this: "My coming to Boston just did wonders for my attitude. Hey, I'm not doing the same things I did at Golden State. And all the talk about the magic of being with the Boston Celtics, forget it. The only difference in me is that the team I'm on now is winning. And that's because the people here compliment my game." He also said Larry Bird had the respect of the officials, plus he was able to create offense not only for himself, but also for Kevin McHale and other players. Sometimes I've seen in NBA history, you have a marquee player that, is a fundamental part of your team that you're building around. And often they'll bring other players, with, prominent names over to the franchise. And while it should be a great addition, it ends up being, the term addition by subtraction. You've seen players come over and it's like, this team is definitely going to be better when you put these players around this guy. And it ends up being instead subtraction by addition because they can't figure it out, or this guy can't figure out how to make these players better around him for whatever reason. That was just one quote. I might even mess up the quote a little bit, but that was just the gist of it. But you can find quotes. You can find quotes for decades of people talking glowingly about Larry Bird. Not just his teammates. Opponents as well. Opponents that were chucking, lobbying, grenades back and forth against Larry will speak very glowingly of him. They would make you think that Bird was a teammate of theirs in the foxhole with him, because you just can't deny the great player and teammate that he was and the leader that he was, even if you are on the opposite side of him. I personally believe there are many different forms of leadership as a teammate. And sometimes you have to understand your personnel. You always have to understand your personnel. Or get the personnel you need. Not necessarily from a talent perspective, because everybody looks at it from a talent perspective. I need all-stars. I need this guy. Not from a talent perspective, but from a mental and emotional perspective. Confidence, will to win, desire to give it all, bringing the troops along with you. And like I said, there's different forms of leadership. I don't mind the abrasive leadership tactics, nor do I mind the softer tones, the kumbaya approaches. Many different ways to skin a cat. But as a leader, on any level, no matter what you do, you have to figure that out and cultivate it. Of the many great NBA players, Larry was like the one guy, and I'm not saying he's the only guy, but definitely off the top of my head, and has a large sample size, of information comparatively. Larry Bird was the one guy that I never really hear anyone say anything bad about this guy as a teammate. I really don't. The Jordans, the Michael Jordans, the Kobe Bryants, Jordan, who I think is the greatest of all time, Kobe Bryant, my favorite player of all time, they may have been abrasive and pit bullish, very hard for many players. And while some did respond positively to Mike and Kobe's style of leadership, others hated their guts. Other people hated playing with Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And they did not think that highly of them. I have never heard anyone not enjoying playing with Larry Bird. The worst thing that you could probably find if you were really fishing is like a small disagreement between Cedric Cornbread Maxwell and Larry Bird. But at the end of the day, they kept it basketball. It was pretty light. based on everything I've learned, and feel free to correct me on this if you disagree in the comment section, please let me know. I always felt like Bird had a good balance of when to be nurturing and when to be abrasive with teammates or get the response out of them that he needed for the basketball club. It's kind of like parenting in many ways when you're in that position. The players that played with Bird, people in general, really, loved Larry Bird's approach to leadership and the teammate that he was. Larry Bird made players better. And when you hear that a lot, people talk about some players like LeBron James, but they're only looking at it from like a statistical point. Fishing for assists, find the open guy. I ain't talking about that. I'm not talking about numbers. I'm not talking about statistics. I'm not talking about, having a player and then putting, spot up shooters around them and then penetrating and just dishing off to the spot up shooters and hoping they hit. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about Larry Bird getting the assists and setting somebody up with a basket, which he could do that at a very high level. But he never fished for it. I am talking about instilling confidence in players. I am talking about getting the best out of each and every player and establishing a hive mindset on a team to create an almost unstoppable unit. I am talking about no matter who you put on the floor, you will find it hard to find chinks in my team's armor because we are all united and know each other, understand each other, and know how to operate with each other as a well-oiled machine. To have a guy that you can follow the lead of no matter who is facing you down across the battlefield, you feel confident and know that this guy, who is so far superior to anybody else on the team for the most part, is out there working harder, training harder, leaving it all out on the floor. When many people could say he's so great, he has nothing to prove. Except he has everything to prove. No matter what accolades and accomplishments this guy might have, because he demands that much of himself and loves the game and the people he plays with. That was Larry Bird as a teammate. How could you not love playing with Larry Bird and following his lead? That's the type of guy he was. That's the type of leader he was. That was Larry Bird. I ain't talking about numbers. Even those numbers were great, I ain't even talking about that. Things that you could only tell from watching a guy play and passing the eye test. Folks, that was Larry Legend. Check out our Larry Bird playlist. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified. Dutch T, again, I appreciate you so much. And I'll catch y'all on the next one. We out, baby.